Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is my New York. On Saturday, the city celebrates Veterans Day with thousands of New Yorkers marching up Fifth Avenue to honor America's servicemen and women. Regrettably, it's a parade that seems to get smaller every year. My guest today is a man who believes every day should be Veterans Day. Bob Abate has spent the past 19 years interviewing World War II veterans, collecting their histories, and thanking them personally for their service. How his admiration of heroes became his passion. Next. Bob Abate, welcome to the program. It's a delight to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tony.
I wonder, we should start at the beginning, obviously. How did this start? I mean, you began it after you retired, but how did it start?
Well, it started many, many years ago. I was a 3-year-old youngster sitting on the kitchen playing with a toy of some sort in my apartment house in the South Bronx by the Yankee Stadium, and my mother and father exploded in the kaleidoscope of emotions.
And this was what year?
Well, I'll tell you in a moment.
Okay.
Screaming, hugging, laughing, crying, kissing. The war is over, the war is over, the war is over. That had to be August of 1945. And we lived in an apartment building with 48 tenants. 6 were returning World War II veterans. One man was badly injured. Mm-hmm. He was in a veterans hospital over in Staten Island. My dad, a New York City fireman, we didn't have a car. And on a couple of occasions, we would take the number 4 Woodlawn-Jerome train,
right,
South Ferry, Staten Island Ferry, and a local bus. And what I remember as a 3- and 4-year-old kid was this big grassy knoll with all these white-clad nurses pushing all these wounded soldiers and sailors on lorries and wheelchairs. And it made a profound impression on me. We lived in a building. One man in my building lost both his legs, Mr. Unger. He would go to the VA every day. He had his car adapted in such a way that he had muscles in his arms like my calves. He would grab his wheelchair, spin it to the front, somehow open the front passenger door and get out. And if I would see him, I would help him wheel him into the lobby.
So you're observing and taking all this in, and you're what? Just a child?
5, 6, 7 years old at the time. One of the men, my dad was a New York City fireman. On Friday nights, he'd go to the local Mannion's Tavern, and one of the guys he'd drink beer with was Red Shea, who was awarded the Medal of Honor in World War II. So I was surrounded by World War II veterans. And at a very young, tender age, 8, 9, 10, to me, I wanted to spend my life defending my country, defending my family, my friends, my neighbors. And I ended up actually going into the service. I went to the Naval Academy. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate. I was there 3.5 years, and I failed 2 engineering courses, and I was commissioned as a civilian. And at that point, I felt my life was over.
So you never got to serve?
I was in the reserves,
Good,
but
yeah.
active duty service in harm's way, no, nothing like that.
And that apparently disappointed you.
It disappointed me greatly at the time. But as I look back on it now, I would not have the family and the life I have now if I had. So, fate is strange. But give you sort of a quick roundabout way. I had gone to Manhattan Prep on the grounds of Manhattan College. I was a good student athlete, and they had offered me a scholarship to the college, which I politely declined to go serve my country. Once I came out of the Naval Academy, I went back to Manhattan College to see if I could transfer some credits. I didn't expect to transfer many. They're all mostly military, but some. Mm-hmm. And the brother in charge of admissions looked at me very seriously, and he said, "Young man," he said, "we would not be the right school for you." I said, "Brother, why is that?" He said, "Because you didn't want to come here out of high school. We don't think we should accept you now." And I was astounded. I said, "Brother, I didn't go to Fordham or St. John's. I went to serve my country." "I understand that, but if you didn't choose us then, we don't want you to choose us now."
Wow.
So I was working, my first job was down, the Wall Street area. Every once in a while I'd pass this building, 302 Broadway, Fordham University School of Education. I would think to myself, this would be a convenient place to go to school, but I know they're not going to have me. I didn't go to Fordham Prep. But one day on a dare, I went into the admissions office. Jesuit took me into his office, got me a cup of coffee. He said, "Young man, how can I help you?" And I told him what I just told you about Manhattan. And he kind of smiled and he said, "We'd be honored to have you as a student." And I said, Father, I'm a little confused.
Jesuits are much smarter than the Christian world.
he said, we at Fordham, I said, I didn't go to the prep, but you'll take me. I went to Manhattan Prep and Manhattan College Row. And he said, young man, we're a lot smarter here at Fordham.
Yeah.
So I did that. Many years later, I lived in Yonkers, and Manhattan had a weekend MBA program. And it was convenient, so I went. And I got my MBA. I would go down there on weekends and jog in their indoor jogging track, which had been homecoming facilities and barracks for the returning World War II veterans.
I'm seeing where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I see from the rafters, the Manhattan College Hall of Fame lists rafters, flags of all the members. And I'm recognized most of the names, but there was one name that was not there that I thought certainly should be there. And a year or two later, I got this thing from Fordham, Manhattan rather, looking for volunteers for the Hall of Fame committee. So I called the chairman up. I said, look, I'm interested, but I did not get my undergraduate. I got it at Fordham, so I don't think I'd qualify. He said, oh no, you have a Manhattan College degree of any kind, you're qualified. I said, in that case, count me in. I want to be on the Hall of Fame committee. And I went down to the Manhattan College Library and got all the 4 years of the Manhattan College newspaper for the 4 years this man, Tyrone Pennell, was at Manhattan College. I was a good athlete.
How did you know of him?
I knew of him because he was phenomenal. I was good, he was phenomenal.
Oh, you were on teams?
We competed
Yeah.
on track teams when we were in high school. He was the Bishop Lachlan. He was a national champion in 1 year in 2 events. It was unheard of. So I put together a detailed proposal for him, about 10 or 12 pages. And I went to the first meeting of the Hall of Fame committee. And there's about 2 or 3 dozen people. I knew nobody. I'm in the back of the room, and some guy says, where's this Bob Abate? I said, Bob Abate? You mean Bob Abbott? Yeah. He said, what's your problem? I said, what are you talking about? He said, what's the matter with you? He said, you're proposing the guy for the Hall of Fame. He's he's already in it. And I looked, and I said, excuse me? I said, who are you? He said, he gave his name, and I want to give his last name here, Matt Schmidt.
No.
And I said, you were the shot putter and the weight man, because I recognized his name from doing the research. He said, yeah. I said, well, you guys were teammates. That's right. Well, in that case, if you were teammates and Tyrone Pennell is in the Hall of Fame, you would have gone to his induction ceremony, right? Yes. Well, did you go? Well, it was a long time ago. I forget. I had printed out, for whatever reason, a listing of the members of the Hall of Fame committee. And I took it up to him. I said, let's see, Pennell starts with a P. He's not here. Oh, well, I just kind of assumed. I said, well, you just showed what happens when you assume.
Yeah, I know, to jump ahead, that you were successful after a lot of twists and turns getting this man into the Hall of Fame at Manhattan Prep. What I'm interested in is, was that sort of the catalyst that now you were going to honor veterans in some way, and later in life you decided it was this way?
Yes. Yeah. When I saw the reaction of his daughter to learning about her father, basically for the first time through what I had proposed, it made me realize that, ooh, wow.
And his daughter had he died before she was old enough to?
She was, she was born Memorial Week 1965. He was killed in Vietnam Thanksgiving in 1965.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Never saw her. And I met her for the first time at the induction ceremony. She came over to me and she gave me a bear hug. She says, you're my guardian angel. I said, what do you mean? She said, I learned more about my father reading your proposal than I've known my whole life.
Wow.
My mother would never.
What a rewarding
and it was that made me realize that, whoa, wow, because I save a lot of military stuff. And in 1995, the Journal News in Westchester had a special edition of World War II veterans, their current picture and their younger picture. And I thought, wow, I got to thank these guys. And I called each guy up and I thanked them on the phone.
The local newspaper comes out with a Veterans Day edition that lists people from the area who had served, veterans. And you call them up.
Yes.
Right. Now, you're a stranger calling them up. And I mean, did some of them say, who is this nut on the phone?
By and large, most of them felt there was no need to be called. There was no need to be thanked. And I told them that you guys saved the world. Because of you, I am where I am with my family. And I want to thank you. And if you don't feel you need to be thanked, I can appreciate that. But I have a need to thank you. And they said, okay, well, and I said, but I want to do it in person. Well, you just thanked me on the phone. I said, I understand that, but please, for me, I'd like to do it in person.
Did it help in these circumstances that you were able to say, look, I was a Navy, I'm a Navy veteran.
Yes, I understood the terminology. So I would go to each man's house, he would have a little attaché case with me, ring the bell, he'd answer the door, invariably he'd be, Bob Abbott, I don't know what your problem is, but you need a hobby because you've already thanked me. I don't know why you want to thank me in person because I have nothing else to tell you. And then I said, sir, then can I ask you one question? Yeah, what is it? What's your recollection of December 7th? And in every single case, he immediately transposed himself to where he was. Hey, come on in. And after about 5 minutes, I'd say, sir, what you're telling me is living history. Unfortunately, it's not being taught. I don't have a great memory. I don't type. But in my bags and in my attaché case is a tape recorder. Mm-hmm. Could I record what you're telling me? Oh, yeah, go right ahead. And invariably an hour or 90 minutes later, we'd be finished. I told each man, I'm going to give you a verbatim transcript. I'm not going to edit it. Whatever you said, it's all in there, and I'm going to give it to you. And I go back a few weeks later and give it to him. And that's basically what I've been doing and have done.
For 19 years.
Yeah.
You've confined us to World War II veterans. I know, as you said, they were an inspiration around you when you were young. Have you thought about doing the same with, let's say, Vietnam veterans? Or
no, I really haven't. Number one, I was never in Vietnam. Number two, I want to be careful just how you couch this. There's a big difference, in my mind, between World War II and every subsequent war this country's been involved in.
What do you see as that difference?
Well, World War II was absolutely necessary. There's never a good war, but World War II was a war that had to be fought. It had to be won, and it literally, not just figuratively, but literally saved the world. It was fought on 4 continents, on every ocean. And we would not be having this conversation today or the lives we have if we had not been victorious. I don't like to use the word won, but victorious in that war. After that, we had Korea, which theoretically is still in a state of war. There's never been a true sign. We had Vietnam, and as honorable as the men who fought the war, I think it's somewhat contemptible for the powers that put us into the war and the things we did to innocent civilians in Vietnam. So for a veteran of Vietnam to want to talk to me about his experiences is markedly different than a veteran of World War II speaking about his experience.
Yeah, and of course you're aware, as many Americans are, that the reception Vietnam veterans, for instance, received coming home was almost hostile in many cases.
It was.
Certainly different from the celebrations for World War II veterans.
Absolutely, night and day difference, yes.
And I take it you're suggesting, even though we don't want to get into politics here, but it sounds like you're suggesting when you say World War II is a war that had to be fought, maybe these others didn't have to be, in your view.
In my view, I don't think so. No, I think it's very, very easy to start a war. You can start a war in a heartbeat. And if you're lucky, it will take generations, if you're lucky, to get some semblance of normalcy restored.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a world of difference, in my opinion, between World War II and the subsequent wars.
You've been talking about the men who served and are heroes. Did you include women in service women?
I did. Not many, approximately a half a dozen. But then again, a lot fewer number of veterans were ladies, but I did. I interviewed a lady who was the first African-American in the United States Coast Guard. I interviewed a lady who, at the age of 15, her mother died. She had no family, and as a 17-year-old, she joined the WACS and became an aide to General Eisenhower over in England and then on the mainland. I interviewed a lady who was with the American Red Cross. Just had some wonderful stories of how she was able to just deal and talk with the wounded soldiers in the South Pacific.
To give our audience a sense of what you've amassed over all this time, you've got, you put many of the stories into a book. Hasn't been published, but nonetheless, you wrote a book with those stories. And you've got, hundreds, thousands of hours of
I have hundreds
of hours of.
Yes.
What would you've got the stories in print, or some of them. You've got these hundreds of hours of audio tape. What would you like to see happen to that material?
I would like to see them be made available to the general public, whether through the Library of Congress. I try not to get too involved with government and political machinations and those kinds of things, but I'd like them to be seen and heard, especially by young children, because in this country today, less than 1% of our 300 million people, less than 1% of our population is directly or indirectly involved with the defense of our nation or with the military in our nation. It's a sense, I believe, of inbred entitlement in this country, because all we've known is basically peace on a mainland. Even as bad as being attacked on December 7th, the mainland was attacked, but the mainland was 6,000 miles from the continental United States.
Hawaii.
So we've grown up in an era and in an environment of it's always something remote and distant. And I think the other thing that bothers me tremendously is we have in Congress today, I would think, of the 535 members of Congress and Senate, I can count, I think, on two hands the number who served in the military.
And that's shrinking.
Yeah, and contrast that with the 50s, where we had Democrats and Republicans at loggerheads with each other, but they were World War II veterans. So whether it was Lyndon Johnson or Nixon or whoever else was involved, they at one point in time had to raise their hand and agree to do what they didn't want to do because they were told to do it, to think of something greater than themselves. And I think we've got much more accomplished because they had that sense of nation and sacrifice. I don't see that in our politicians today. And I think we just tend to think that, might makes right, and that's wrong. And I just... I think we're just like a muscle-bound giant in this world, like a bull in a china shop.
You told some of the story of this Pennell film before. Is there more to that you want to tell, or are there other stories that you'd like to tell, individual stories that you want to tell our audience today?
I would love to. I say I don't have one favorite, but if I had to pick one favorite of all my interviews, it was a young guy in the South Bronx, Ray Hyman. He was born Jewish. He was never raised in the Jewish faith. His father was in World War I, and his father was in the cavalry. And down in Texas one night on maneuvers, he and his best friend Smitty took their horses out, and they filled their 10-gallon hats with beer and fed them to the horses, and the horses collapsed on the ground, and his father was put into the brig for a day or two. And Ray Hyman would always say to me that every time he sees blazing saddles, he thinks of his He fell in love when he was 8 or 9 years old, a little Irish girl in the South Bronx. He ran away at the age of 13 to join the military. He joined the sea transport, was caught in about a year, went before a judge, Judge Pankey, as he said, a little guy with a bow tie, and he said, "Young man, if you come before me again before you're 16 years old, I'll put you in reform school." So at the age of 16, he joined the Navy League. He ended up going into the Navy, and he joined this thing called UDT, Underwater Demolition Teams. It was a brand new concept. They were the forerunners of the Navy SEALs. As he said, he learned to swim in the Bronx River. Well,
that's a tough
last
place.
time I saw the Bronx River, it's not much of a swimming spot, but that's what he tells me. And he was involved.
If you can swim in the Bronx River, you can swim any place.
Yeah, but he was involved in the invasion of Okinawa, but prior to that, Iwo Jima. And he went in Iwo Jima. He was either the second or third wave in. And when he went in, there were a lot of dead Marines on the beach, uncovered. And the commanding general, Howland Red Smith, they used to call him Raven Mad Smith, gave an order out that these Marines were not to be covered because he wanted the oncoming Marines to be more motivated by seeing this to kill Japanese soldiers. Ray went over and took his poncho and covered a dead Marine. And an officer came over and said, "Uncover him." And he said, "No, sir, I'm not doing that. Uncover him or I'm going to court-martial you." "Sir, court-martial me if you want. I'm not going to uncover him. Just file that away for a moment." During the invasion of Okinawa, the UDT guys, and they were called Naked Warriors. The only thing they had was a knife and a chalkboard to mark the obstacles to make the marine landings a little more safe. They were told for Okinawa, forget everything they were taught about stealth, to go into the water, make as much noise, bring satchel charges. The whole idea was to divert the Japanese from one end of the island to the other. And they did. They diverted a Japanese division. And if you look into the records, as horrible as Okinawa was, the Marine casualties the first day were pretty moderate. Ray would always say to me, he considered that the greatest April Fools of all day, because the invasion of Okinawa was April 1st, 1945. And he always said, someday I'm going to write a story about that. He never got a chance, but we became close. We became very close on the phone, and I would visit him. And he called me one day. Actually, I called him. I said, Ray, how you doing? Bob Abate. Oh, he said, Bob, I'm dying. And I thought, oh my God. I said, Ray, what's the matter? Turned out he had cancer of the larynx. And I felt terrible. And he said, no. He said, I should have died during the war. He said, oh. He said, what's killing me? He said, some SOB's got my fins. I said, what do you mean? It turned out that Ray, on his fins with a razor blade, scratched the word Hyman, Hyman, on each of his fins. And he donated it to the SEAL Museum.
The fins he wore in the water.
The fins he wore in the water. Donated to the SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida. And every couple of years, they would have a reunion of his UDT Team 14 down in Fort Pierce. And the last time he was down, he noticed his fins were not in the display cabinet. And he asked one of the curators, where are my fins? And the guy said, oh, we're renovating. They're off in a warehouse somewhere, and when we finish, we'll bring them back. He had gotten a call earlier that week from some collector in California. And the collector said, are you Ray Hyman, UDT Team 14? Yeah, oh yeah. We said, well, I've got your fins here. I got them on the internet, and I'd like you to authenticate that these are your fins. Well, Ray went crazy. And, and he hung up on the guy. So I said to Ray, I said, give me the guy's phone number, give me his name, let me see what I can do. And what I did was basically, I had his email address, I had his phone number, and then I called the guy. And I said, look, you don't know me, and I told him the Ray Hyman story. And I said, I don't doubt that you bought these under good, in your mind, they were legit, but they were stolen, and they never should have been for sale. But here's the thing, Ray is dying, and I need you to lend me those fins for a week or 2 months or whatever. And the guy, no, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, your email address is lafireboat@aol.com. What's that all about? He said, well, I'm a fireman. And I said, oh, wow. I said, I couldn't be happy. I said, my dad's a fireman. I asked him, I said, was your father in the Navy? He said, yes, in World War II. I said, well, ask your dad what you should do. He said, I can't, he's dead. I said, well, I'm going to call you back in the morning. I said, because I really need you to send me those fins. Calling him back the next day, he asked me, he said, what's your mailing address? I said, oh, wonderful. What made you change your mind? He said, I spoke to my dad last night. He told me to do the right thing.
Wow.
I got the fins a week later. I gave them to Ray. Ray couldn't have been happier. About 2 weeks later, it's snowing. Ray called me up. He said, Bob, I got a problem. He said, I got snow up here. He's got a tilted driveway. I'm concerned if I have to go to the hospital, I can't get up in my car. I said, Ray, I'll be right up. And I started to shovel his driveway. And as I'm shoveling his driveway, he comes out into the basement of his garage wearing a pair of pajamas. I said, Ray, go back inside. You're going to get pneumonia. What the hell? I'm going to be dead in 6 weeks. And with that, he walks past me he goes up the driveway. I yelled out, Ray, what the hell are you doing? He said, I'm just going to get the mail. He gets his mail. He comes halfway down. Boom. He falls on the ground. Bob, I can't get up. I can't get up. I go down to grab him. I touch his arms. I feel bone. So what I do is I grab his pajamas. I lift him up like a rag doll. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, here's how it's ending. He's a rag doll in my arms. And this is the guy that fought the Japanese at Iwo Jima and Okinawa.
Your honor of these men is remarkable, and it would not be right, I don't think, to conclude this program without at least some mention of what appears to be the government's shabby treatment of veterans of all wars. The Department of Veteran Affairs 3 years ago, a major expose of the cover-up that was going on in that department in terms of denying or delaying care for veterans. And a lot of those things have not been corrected even today. That expose wound up with the Secretary of the VA, Eric Shinseki, being fired. I mean, they were sending out death notices to living vets, and their benefits would be cut off. They had a suicide hotline that would go to voicemail. They were rationing crucial medicines. I mean, it was a mess. And as recently as a year ago, a veterans organization condemned the Obama administration for not fixing any of it. So I wonder, you know, as you do this noble thing, what do you think of the government's treatment of the men who followed its orders and served, men and women who followed its orders and served?
Well, the VA is very good for some people. I can't deny that. But there's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of politicization within the Bureau. There's a lot of lost records. I mean, they had a huge fire in St. Louis decades ago, which I seriously question how it started. Mm-hmm. And I find that from a lot of veterans I've heard of or seen, records get lost. And I think in many cases it's not necessarily accidental. But, you know,
the current VA secretary last year compared the waiting times at VA hospitals. He compared them to the waiting times at Disney parks, Disney amusement parks. Can you reckon with that?
I don't know anything about the waiting time at Disneyland, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
They're long. they're eternal.
I belong to the VA. I belonged to a group for about 10 years. It was very helpful to me, and I heard some horror stories. But I got to a point where I just felt, especially now with Iraq and Afghanistan, I was taking up a seat that could be much better taken up by somebody else. So I left. And I didn't lose anything in leaving because I got a lot of benefit from when I was there. But I think I think there's an awful lot of bureaucracy. I think there's an awful lot of civilians that work at the VA who, as well-intentioned as they are, don't really understand the problems that the veterans have, especially now with Iraq and Afghanistan, when men are coming back after 4, 5, or 6 deployments.
Right.
The human psyche, the brain is not conditioned to handle that kind of traumatic event, come home for a year, try and be, you know, dad or partner or whatever, and go back and then come back. To me, it's a recipe, at least medically and psychologically, for disaster. And I don't think they know really how to handle it. Because one way is not to have to go in the first place.
Exactly. Bob Abate, what you do is laudable. I hope you continue doing it to the best of your abilities. And I'm delighted you were here to tell us these stories.
Well, it's a pleasure. I welcome the opportunity to get the word out as best I can.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.